LinkedIn, and welcome to the follow-up week on my prompting education course. Last week, we went over a couple foundational points about what this whole initiative is, as well as everything related to some of the core structures that you need to apply when you're creating your own prompts and starting to apply this in real life. Today, want to take this a little bit more tactically and actually put some of these things into action. And with that, much of the video that we're going to be covering today is going to actually be a bit outside of what I would like a, most of this to be, which is really more focused on the actual tactical and execution side of things versus looking at things from the theoretical side. So what I have to share is going to be focused primarily on Claude. And Claude, if you're not familiar with it, is very similar to ChatGPT in that it is a generative AI tool that allows you to produce new kinds of content and information based off of input that you've provided. Reason why I'm using Claude for this example and not ChatGPT is for the view you're looking at here, which is referred to as projects. Projects are something that's unique to Claude, at least right now, in that you're able to have a series of chats, project knowledge, custom instructions, and other relevant content in an individual folder. And all of that kind of works together to further improve additional conversations. This is different from ChatGPT and many of the other LLMs that you might use because those all happen within an individual chat. Again, the difference here is that we're able to reference multiple chats, multiple files, as well as custom instructions that we define. Now, this specific example that I'm going to be walking you through is actually one that I'm building real time and wanting to need on my own. And you'll see this from this initial prompt, it gives you really everything that I'm looking to accomplish. In a nutshell, I have all of this information that I've been compiling for this prompt education curriculum, live stream, whatever term you want to use. What I want to be creating today is this demo project. And this demo project, which is going to exist right here, is really just this place where I can showcase all these individual different how-to guides, tips, tricks, and very hands-on applications. And you'll notice that my initial prompt is a little bit lengthier than you might expect it to be. It isn't quite as long as some of the other ones that I've put in because I haven't quite refined what the final version is going to be. In this, I've done everything that I was really talking about in the previous video. So the first thing I'm doing is setting my overall goal. And so my goal is that I want to be creating a project to host all examples and guides. So I do that both here and here. I'm providing a context. So the context around it is that I have everything tied to this course. I have my course framework that I'm going on over here. I have a little bit more example for how I want this to be filled out on behalf of Claude. So that's really telling it the instructions that I'm looking to follow in order to get there. So we need to configure everything. What information do you need? And lastly, I'm telling it what I want the output to be. And the output is essentially a Claude project. So you'll see that once I go ahead, get this thing running, we'll be able to start having the conversation with the bot. And now that we're going over everything, you'll notice that there's a lot of information that's coming down here initially. And this is all something that you can answer in one prompt, actually. The important thing to keep in mind is that you very clearly delineate what your answers are compared to the individual questions so that you're able to provide the information where it makes the most sense. So the first thing I like doing just with all of these things is to just thank the bot because the what I've found is that when you think and work proactively and positively with the different tools, they tend to be more receptive and more helpful to trying to get you the answer you want. Remember, they're based off of uh, like natural language processing. And so how you talk is going to be how they understand your conversation and mirror it back to you. So if you're being a lot more rude, hostile, and short, you're probably going to get a very similar response from the bot. However, if you're a lot more drawn out, a lot more polite, and you take the time to provide all the information needed, you're going to have a very similar and better experience reciprocated to you. So, like I mentioned, first thing I'm going to be doing is just thanking the bot. So, thank you. And then I'm going to be telling it where I'm going to have my answers. So now that I've established this, we just work through each one of these individual questions. And so it first goes through content organization, naming conventions, as well as just asking specific information about how I want to have everything organized. And for the purpose of this project, I don't think I have one quite tied, but I'm open to hearing the bot's perspective. So, so I'm going to go ahead and take a few seconds and just answer accordingly. All right. So what I've kind of put in here is essentially a request for the bot to come up with a naming convention. Because what I've found is that whenever it asks you to define it, it can follow things along based off of what you're looking for. However, if you're getting the machine to provide the recommendation, it's going to provide you with its best approach. And then it's much better at following things that it's able to create on its own because it's based off of a very specific piece of logic. And now, if you need to adjust that in any way, you absolutely can. Just make sure that you're providing that feedback to the bot so it can go ahead and do it. So as I've kind of answered that first question, it'll probably get back to me more. So I just want to leave this open-ended, so just in case it has any additional questions. And so now that I've answered that, the next question is just it's asking about the demonstration parameters that all of this is going to be. And so it's going to be a wide variety. So there's going to be wide variety of examples, primarily focused on technical how-tos. So this really answers all three of those questions fairly succinctly, but I want to make sure that I'm clear about that. And so I can use the example of what we're recording the video for right now. And so in this case, like I'm actively recording this video showing myself creating this project. Providing that context to the bot is going to be really informative to it for how this is going to be used, because that information is then used for all future conversations I have within this project. So for example, I'm using recording chat for so I've now just told the bot that exact example. And now it's going to be continuing to lean into me for just teaching style and documentation. And for all of this is just, it's asking for specific preferences and things that I'm going for. And so a lot of this is really just based off of personal preference. And in that case, I can just go ahead and answer this based off of the things that I'm looking to do. And so, particular teaching, my teaching style primarily focus on theory with time. So I've now provided it information about how I like doing the teaching style. It should be able to extrapolate the rest of the information from there. And I will using Claude and ChatGPT for these purposes. Please consider that build, and I am creating all of these examples with the intention of being aided by entire. This for both and pre-recorded. And so this is this is a perfect example of showing where you want to provide additional context. So needing examples for both live and pre-recorded videos, because when it's pre-recorded, I can have the option to edit it versus when it's live, you have to sit through my awkward pauses and silences while I'm typing into the bot. I know that's not fun when we're kind of doing all of this, and there's a lot of places for you to go. So that's kind of where it's a good way to really tell the bot that I want to be leaning more into that direction. So with that in mind, I can go ahead and tell it that context, just as a little bit of humor, and that'll help really further define what this is going to be because, again, the bot is understanding how I'm talking to it, the information that I'm using, the words I'm using, and other aspects that are really associated with this project. And so I can kind of throw that in there. And now that I've provided all this in, just want to give it one last note to just check with me if it needs anything else. No. So one thing you'll immediately note based off this whole aspect so far is that this is extremely conversational. And that is the biggest aspect that is quickly forgotten or overlooked by beginner users. And the reason for that is that there's just this impression, this feeling that it's kind of like a Google of sorts, where you ask question, you get answer. That's not the case. And the reason for that is just the magic of, uh, well, we call it magic, but it's really the science of these generative AI tools. And in a nutshell, generative AI tools are comprised of two different components, which I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time diving into today, but just want to give a little bit of context for you to reference. And that's that they're based off of NLP, or natural language processing, and LLM, or large language model. And these two aspects work hand in hand. The NLP, natural language processing, understanding how you're communicating and how you're writing, and LLM essentially being a massive library of knowledge and information. It then marries its understanding of what you're asking it to do with that knowledge of information and is able to provide you with your outcome. And so we see all of this created very directly, where it's now created the organized structure based off of its understanding of here's what you're looking to do, here are the questions I have. It's now done research across the entire internet at the same point in time as well as a variety of other areas, and it's providing the recommendation for how I can organize the entire project structure here. Uh, you'll notice that this aspect tends to be a lot more focused on the examples, again, which is exactly what I was going for, versus the other project where it's more focused on the application of the theory. And the thing that it's looking for is now to really follow up on this first action item. And this is where things can get a little gray once you've completed your first goal. And that's where I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up, at least for today. And the main focus on that is just understanding what is your goal and what is the outcome. And as soon as you're able to reach that goal and outcome, you're usually going to know it, because when you're still working through that process, you'll have the bot be asking you a variety of questions, and those questions will clarify the context so that it's able to provide things further. Once you've completed the bot's understanding of your goal, it's going to say, here is your thing. Congratulations. I'm being sarcastic there, but you understand. And then it also goes on to basically say, hey, look, do you want me to do this now? And as soon as it starts asking you if you want it to start creating additional content, that's your cue that the bot believes that you are at the conclusion of your initial goal. And if you are, perfect. That's a great way for you to pretty much document it, say thank you to the bot, and then you can discontinue your chat if you want. However, if for whatever reason this is wrong, you need to tell the bot what is wrong and provide it context for why. Because if you're not doing that and you're just abandoning the chat and starting a new chat, the bot's going to think that you've actually completed your goal, and that's going to further cause some challenges down the line. Down the road. And that's just really some of the aspects to just kind of keep in mind as you're building all these things out. Again, just bringing this whole thing recap one last time. Your goal is to pretty much set up your prompt and using the foundational information of just showing what exactly your goal is. You want to provide it with context and information. You want to provide it any instructions to get through your initial prompt, and you want to tell it what you want your outcome to be. Then you'll have that conversation with the bot in order to ensure that it is able to capture all of that information appropriately and relevantly. And then once you've gone back and forth through however many iterations that may be, in this case, it was just one quick back and forth. Other times it may be an entire conversation. You'll have your finished product. Now you go through, audit your finished product, make sure it's what you're looking to see, and if it is, you're in a good place. And that's really all there is to the world of prompting. And there's a lot more to this, obviously, that I'm going to be going ahead and providing different examples to throughout the entirety of this course, and focusing on the theory of what I'm going to be talking about on each of my subsequent conversations here. Well, I say conversations, but really it's just me talking to a camera, so let's be honest, they're rants. But each of these different like I said it again, each of these different rants that I'm pretty much doing here on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, or actually YouTube now too. And I will get better at this, I assure you. And that's the whole point and the beauty of all of this, is that it's all about practice. And similar to how I'm not doing that great at live streaming right now, because I've really only just started doing it on my own, let alone doing it solo. And it's going to be a similar kind of experience for you too when you're doing these prompts. And that's okay. Be okay with being uncomfortable with it, and understand that, embrace it, and be authentic with it, and just endure and practice. And the more you're able to do that and apply some of the theories and ideas that I'm sharing, as well as you might see elsewhere across the internet. Just make sure you're pulling together what makes sense for your particular style. Because, like I was mentioning earlier, NLP being natural language processing, since it's focused on how you're having the conversation, it's going to converse best with you when you're using your own vernacular and it's responding using vernacular that matches yours. So use what works for you and just practice that. And over time, you will get better. All of this is not an exact science, and even those who are really experienced with it, like I like to think I am one of those people, but even still, it's a complicated concept to explain, and there isn't one way to explain it. So use what works best for you, and just enjoy the time, enjoy the experience, and hope this was informative. I know there'll be more conversations like this over the next several weeks, and have an announcement about all of this that will hopefully be a bit more helpful and less pause and stuttery like you're experiencing today, that I'll be sharing with you next week. Hope you have a wonderful week and enjoy your time, and we'll chat on Monday. Have a good one. Take care, all. That was fucking terrible.